This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
At least 67 people killed in ethnic violence during protests in Ethiopia. Zimbabwe's president says Western sanctions must go. And Makeshift Trampoline Club in South Africa looks to produce Olympic gymnasts. Hello and welcome to CGTN. This is Africa Live and I'm Karen Roberts in Nairobi, also coming up in the programme. In business, Nigeria's Oya Now taking door-to-door service to next level. And in sports, South Africa's Proteas return home after 3-0 series thrashing by India. At least 67 people have died in clashes in Ethiopia. That's according to authorities there. They include 5 officers. The military has deployed forces in the country's Oromia region to try to calm the violence which morphed into ethnic tensions. Violence started on Wednesday after an activist from the Oromia region, Jawad Mohammed, complained about the withdrawal of his security by the government. He accuses the Prime Minister of acting like a dictator and suggesting that he might challenge him in elections planned for next year. Zimbabwe is continuing its campaign against sanctions imposed by the United States and the European Union, which it says are crippling the country's development. Thousands marched in the capital during a new holiday declared by the government on October the 25th to push for the removal of these restrictions. The sanctions were imposed during late former President Mugabe's time in office and affect over 100 individuals and companies. CG10's Robert Nagila with this report.
Supporters of the anti-sanctions campaign gathered in the capital to rally for the removal of US and EU imposed restrictions. With the Harare Stadium barely filled, this did not deter leaders from continuing with the day's planned activities. President Emerson Mnangagwa made his address, calling for the Zimbabwean people to stand their ground and push for an end to the measures.
Today, we arise and collectively say, enough is enough. The illegal sanctions are an albatross to the development, well-being and prosperity of the people of Zimbabwe. Sanctions must go. Remove them now.
The EU and the US took to social media to respond to Zimbabwe, saying only a few individuals and companies had been targeted. They also insist that restrictions do not have an impact on the overall economy of the country. However, the president disagrees.
This is the reality of these deleterious sanctions on our country. No amount of propaganda can spin or sugarcoat this gruesome truth. The continued judgment and setting of utopian standards for Zimbabwe, which are never applied in any other jurisdictions, are callous, vindictive, and should not be allowed to continue. This is the basis on which we say enough is enough. Remove these sanctions.
In line with the protests, the US announced new sanctions on the country's state security minister, Owen Kube. It cited his involvement in human rights violations, of which it says it has credible evidence of. But with this recent rallying, supporters of the cause are convinced that the impact is being felt down the line.
I want the sanctions to be removed. I am someone who is not well. I've got a backbone problem, but I managed to walk here so that these sanctions be removed now, because I am the one who is suffering.
If possible, sanctions must go. It's high time those sanctions should be removed right now.
Harare says the measures have restricted the country from acquiring debt relief and fresh funding from entities such as the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. And with this pull and tag, it is not clear how Zimbabwe's economy will ultimately recover. Robert Nagela, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Well, the Zimbabwean community in South Africa, in solidarity, held a protest march in the capital, Pretoria, demanding the removal of sanctions against Zimbabwe. This comes as the SADC countries and the African Union join calls to scrap the restrictions, saying that they are likely to cause a regional impact. CGTN's Yolisa Njamela reports.
Their message is crisp and clear. They want all sanctions against Zimbabwe lifted. Their demands are in line with the African Union resolution to support Zimbabwe as the country struggles to rebuild its economy. The sanctions continue to cripple industries in Zimbabwe. The organizers of this march say the economic sanctions are not only felt by Zimbabweans in Zimbabwe, but by the SADC region as well.
That's a true reflection, because the sanctions that were illegally imposed on Zimbabwe are militating against the development of the whole SADC region and Africa in general, because we believe when one country is starved of its development because of these illegal sanctions, all the other members in the region will also feel the effects of the sanctions.
These sanctions are dividing us as a region, because they are forcing Zimbabweans to flee their country and become beggars in other countries, which somehow creates some of the problems of instability in the region. So it's in our interest as the ANC and as South Africa and as a region to have the sanctions against Zimbabwe lifted.
Many believe the protests will yield positive results, while others say it will put pressure on the Western countries to review their position on Zimbabwe.
Our leaders, they are using sanctions to say that the country is not moving because of sanctions. We know that there are some things that we disagree on what they are saying. But the first things first, whatever they are crying with, we need to remove it. Then now we go and say, fine, we have removed sanctions. Why then the wheel is not turning?
The African Union has called for the lifting of the sanctions. Yolisa Njamela for CGTN in Pretoria, South Africa.
Meanwhile, the United Nations Security Council is considering reviewing an arms embargo imposed on Somalia, citing a change in the political and security landscape in the country. This was announced by the chair of the Somalia Sanctions Committee, Mark Pekstein de Boitswerf. He said that the embargo must be changed to fit the realities of counterinsurgency in the country. The committee said it was not clear if the charcoal trade was still a critical source of revenue for Al-Shabaab, and put forward a further review of the ban on its import and export. In 1992, the UNSC implemented a general ban on all deliveries of weapons and military equipment to Somalia until further notice.
Noting that the current political and security context in Somalia was vastly different from when the embargo was first instituted in 1992, the coordinator of the panel of experts stated that it was clear to the panel that the embargo must be streamlined, simplified and updated to reflect the current realities of counterinsurgency in Somalia. Concerning the ban on the import and export of Somalia charcoal, the coordinator of the panel of experts stated that it was no longer clear that Al-Shabaab was deriving significant revenue from the trade and recommended a review of the ban on charcoal.
One of South Africa's main municipalities was hit by a cyber attack on Friday. The city of Johannesburg's central operational system shut down for the day, with the hackers demanding a ransom of 4 bitcoins trading at over $7,000 to be handed over to them by the end of business on October the 28th. CGTN's Sumitra Naidu has the details.
The central system that holds millions of resident accounts was hacked late Thursday, shutting down all e-service operations. Those responsible call themselves shadow kill hackers.
Our IT guys started detecting
suspected interventions on the system. Suspected cyber attack started at the user level. Individuals, employees, at various workstations connected to the network. It would target different workstations with a particular message. And then as a city, we said no, for the integrity of the information and the safety of the confidential information of our customers, let's shut down the system, investigate, and be able to restore the system at a time that is suitable and safe.
The ransom was for Bitcoin, amounting to around $27,000. The city said it would not give in to threats. Security experts have been working since last night to restore operations. Some of the systems are up and running again, but thousands of customers were left without much assistance for most of the day.
From a ransomware perspective, that happens when someone actually kind of enters your environment and from there encrypts all your data. So it would make the data unusable for you as a user. And what they would do with this encrypted data is then ask you for a ransom, similar to what they're doing with the city of Johannesburg now. So they'll ask for generally something in a Bitcoin value.
This is the second cyber attack on a South African government department. Most attacks are usually targeted at the banks. Sumitra Naidu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
We are going to a short break now. Don't go away. Lots more to come, including police free over a dozen people from Islamic rehab center in Nigeria's northeastern state of Adamawa. And South Sudan-China think tank forum opens up opportunities for joint cooperation.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. AfricaLive. Find your voice. AfricaLive. Find your voice.
We now move to Nigeria, where police have uncovered yet another Islamic school abusing students in the northeastern state of Adamawa. More than a dozen people were freed there and the operators arrested. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam filed this report.
The Adamawa State Police spokesman, Sulaiman Nguroje, said they raided the Islamic Rehab Center in the capital, Yola. 15 persons were found under very harsh conditions, 2 of them teenagers. The inmates had been whipped, chained, and severely tortured. Police say they've arrested the head of the center and his 3 sons and have launched investigations into their operations. Now, this comes less than a day after a similar center was uncovered and raided in northwest Zaria, Kaduna State. 11 inmates were freed there. Such centers are predominantly in Nigeria's north, and President Buhari announced months back that he would proscribe them, but is yet to make a concrete stance. The owners say the parents and guardians of the inmates bring them there willingly for being either recalcitrant or mentally ill. About 1,000 persons have been released from Islamic torture houses so far. Kelechi Amekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
The UN peacekeeping chief has expressed optimism over the resolution of border disputes between Sudan and South Sudan. Jean-Pierre Lacroix was briefing the Security Council on the latest developments following a meeting with both parties on the disputed oil-rich border territory of Abyei.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you.
South Sudan and Sudan are just talks away to the resolving of the status of oil-rich territory of Abyei and other border issues. Both governments have agreed on the full deployment of monitoring mechanisms in the disputed area. The force has played a key role in stabilizing the security situation on the ground since 2011.
Both countries have never been closer to achieving sustainable peace with each other and with their armed oppositions as they continue to support respective peace processes. Building upon the recent positive developments in their bilateral relations, the two sides need to resume direct talks immediately to resolve outstanding provisions of their agreements in relation to the final status of Abyei and border issues.
Despite the volatile political situation in both countries, they are keen to end border hostilities.
I would like to reaffirm the determination of the government of Sudan to cooperate with the government of the Republic of South Sudan and all partners to reach a permanent, comprehensive solution that achieves security and stability for Abyei and the region and gives our brethren in Abyei a chance for a decent life.
For our government, Abyei has been a priority, and we appreciate the efforts and the contribution of regional and the international community. And we strongly believe that the continuous support to UNESCO and the JBVMM will allow for more progress to be achieved on the benchmarks.
Lacroix is now seeking to extend the mandate of the UN force and the border monitoring team for another 6 months.
At this critical juncture of transition in both countries, it is critical that the only international mechanism operating in the border area is equipped with an appropriate mandate, capabilities and assets. This would also send a strong signal to the parties that the United Nations remain committed to maintaining stability in the area.
Representatives from both governments are now set to meet in Addis Ababa. The talks will focus on the 5 areas that are still in dispute. They include the Daba al-Fujar, Jabal al-Mukainis, Kakarayas, Kefi Kenji, and Hofrat al-Nehas.
The first South Sudan-China think tank forum is taking place in Juba. South Sudan's government says the forum can help push for better government policies in the war-torn country. CGTN's Patrick Oyet now reports from Juba.
South Sudan's government says it wants to learn from China's think tanks so it can fast-track development in the East African country.
We should redouble our efforts to shift the growth model and adjust the economic structure, raise the quality of development, and improve the quality of life of our two peoples.
The forum is discussing politics, economy, and governance. It brings together members of South Sudan Center for Strategic and Policy Studies and representatives of many institutions such as East African and African Educational Centers of Studies based in China. China says there are many opportunities for South Sudanese and Chinese experts to cooperate and overcome challenges facing the two countries.
In South Sudan's most difficult time, China is always here, and the Chinese companies are also always here. We practice the final principle of China-African cooperation and firmly support South Sudan in achieving peace, stability, and development.
Beijing further says the forum opens up opportunities for joint research and teaching. The forum here is discussing topics such as diplomatic relationships, education, infrastructural development, and China's contribution towards peace, which remains elusive in South Sudan. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
More than 200 state-run schools in Libya have been shut down as teachers continue with their strike. They're demanding better wages from a budget under strain from a massive public salary bill and renewed conflict.
State-run schools in Libya were meant to open on the 13th of October, but until now they've remained closed, with teachers staging sit-ins in Benghazi and the capital Tripoli.
The reason for this strike is that we need to implement Law Number 4 issued by Parliament, which is enforceable. The law has 3 stipulations: 1, increasing the teacher's salary; 2, medical insurance; and 3, protection of teachers. We are striking on the condition that we live under the rule of law and the law should be implemented.
Last year, Parliament approved a law to raise teachers' salaries, but it has yet to be implemented. Political turmoil, corruption before and after 2011 have been blamed for the situation. Monthly salaries range from $357 to $608 in state-run schools.
A true and dedicated teacher deserves the bonuses. We are not in conflict with the syndicate. We are all united. But we examined the country's conditions in the ministry and discussed it with the Minister of Education. The country's conditions do not allow to increase the salaries of teachers. Since the country is in debt, the increases will be given when there is enough money.
With hundreds of public schools shut by the protest, some families have been forced to move their children to private schools.
As parents, we've lived through the war before, and students missed years of school. We cannot take this anymore. I had to take my son out of public school and send him to a private one, in order not to miss this school year. We don't just want a certificate saying that he passed and can move on to the next grade.
The move has not deterred the teachers from striking. They maintain that they will only return to class once their demands are met. Bobat Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
The Uganda Wildlife Authority says a group of gorillas that migrated from Rwanda has been at the Magahinga National Park in southwestern Uganda for about 3 weeks now. Conservationists say the migration is good for tourism because this increases the number of gorilla groups at the park. CGTN's Isabel Nakiria reports.
Ugandan conservationists are keeping track of a visiting group of gorillas from Rwanda. The hero group of 18 gorillas has been in Uganda's Magahinga National Park for about 3 weeks now.
When a gorilla comes, a group of gorillas come, we are able to tell that this is not one of ours. And that's why we are able to tell that, wait a second, we have a visiting group, because it's not known among the groups that we have in Uganda.
Magahinga National Park is located at the border with Rwanda and is part of the Virunga Massif, an expanse of volcanoes and forests that span across Rwanda, Uganda and the DRC. Magahinga National Park has around 600 gorillas. The Wildlife Authority says the migration is a boost to gorilla tracking revenues.
Gorilla tracking is the cash cow. It's the one that brings in a lot of revenue that we are using to do conservation work. The revenue we are using to do animal translocations, the revenue we are using to contain diseases, the revenue we are using to do law enforcement, the revenue we are using to pay salaries. So gorilla tracking contributes a very big percentage.
Conservationists say migration of gorillas is seasonal. A similar incident happened 4 years ago when the Nyakagezi group of gorillas from Uganda crossed to Rwanda and stayed there for months before returning. The Uganda Wildlife Authority says this group too will with time return to their habitat in Rwanda. Conservationists warn ensuring the primates stay healthy during their seasonal movements is key.
All the habituated gorilla groups, we know their names, we know where they're ranging every single day, they're tracked every single day. So we're able to tell if they're having problems, if they have some health problems, we're able to attend to them in time. If they have something in the area like snares that they could get caught in, the law enforcement team comes in and removes them. So I think that very intensive monitoring and research on these gorillas.
Gorilla trucking alone brings in about 70% of Uganda's tourism revenues. The more gorillas there are in the park, the more tourists will come to spot them. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
In southeast England, police have arrested more suspects in connection with the deaths of 39 people whose bodies were found in a refrigerated truck. Jin Yingqiao has more.
The investigation into the gruesome case seems to be gathering pace. 3 days after the Essex police discovered the container at an industrial park east of London, British police have arrested a third suspect. He's being held on suspicion of conspiracy to traffic people and of manslaughter. Apart from the other 2 suspects, the truck's driver also remains in custody on suspicion of murder. Local police have stressed that the nationalities of the victims are still unconfirmed, and they've urged media not to speculate about the tragedy.
We owe it to those who've died to get this investigation right, and speculation is not helpful. It may in fact hinder our investigation and its progress. The force will not be commenting on any speculation about the nationalities of those who have tragically lost their lives. I strongly urge journalists and people on social media not to speculate about the identities of those involved or the circumstances surrounding this investigation.
Initial reports suggested all the victims were Chinese, but later a family in Vietnam released a devastating text message from their 26-year-old daughter, in which she wrote that she was struggling to breathe. It was sent just 4 hours before the bodies were discovered, suggesting she might have been one of the 39 dead. 2 other Vietnamese families also reported missing relatives. Meanwhile, experts have said Vietnamese trafficked through China are sometimes given false Chinese passports. China is cooperating with the investigation, which now involves police from Belgium, Ireland, Bulgaria, and the UK.
We hope the British side can confirm their identities as soon as possible. I also want to stress that no matter what their nationalities are, this is indeed a huge tragedy that draws the attention of the international community on the problem of illegal immigrants. The international community should further enhance cooperation to prevent similar tragedies from happening again.
Police will continue to investigate where the victims come from, who they are, and how their ill-fated journey unfolded. Jin Chao, CGTN.
Well, across Europe, investigators are urgently trying to piece together the background to the tragic deaths. Mark Webster has this report from the Belgian port of Zeebrugge.
A comprehensive investigation is now underway right across Europe to establish the precise movements of the container before it arrived here in the port of Zeebrugge, the exact time it arrived here and how long it spent on the quayside, and why the safety and security arrangements of the port failed so badly. Not surprisingly, senior figures, particularly in the port, won't say anything publicly so far. However, we can establish what the procedures were when the container arrived here. The port authorities say they do not routinely check inside containers, instead of which they look at the back and see if the seals have been tampered with. Only 1 in 400 containers is then given a second check. Now, with 4,000 of them arriving here every day, that means only 10 containers are checked every day. And that means critics say that this is a honeypot for smugglers. One other worrying line of inquiry for the investigators, this could be the work of very professional and very ruthless smugglers who promise their clients a guaranteed safety when they arrive there and therefore charge a premium, which is making people trafficking as lucrative as drug smuggling. Either way, until all these bodies are identified, there are hundreds, perhaps thousands of families desperately worried about what the news they'll hear.
We have all the business news coming up for you after the break, including Nigeria's Oyo now taking door-to-door service to next level. And Tunisia joins 50 million African women networking initiative.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
AfricaLive. Find your voice.
In some markets, getting everything on your grocery list delivered to your doorstep with one click may seem out of reach. In Nigeria, however, on-demand delivery services are taking off. Here's CGTN's Deji Badmus with the story of Oya Now, the first logistics startup in Africa's most populous nation, which offers a broad range of products at the click of a button.
It's midday and this Oya Now agent has arrived at this fruit market in Abuja to pick an order from one of the fruit sellers here for a client. Both agent and seller confirm the order on the phone, then the fruits are selected and put in the bag. Before long, the agent is on his way to deliver the order to the client. He soon arrives at the client's place where the delivery is made before he heads off for possibly another errand. The process essentially sums up how Oya Now operates. And the logistics startup delivers everything from groceries, food, medicine, and much more.
Especially for groceries, I think using Oya Now is much easier than having to go and pick up the groceries yourself. Just because I can just see the items on the app, select. I don't have to go to individual stores and then do the selection myself. So it's really convenient to have that app on your phone. It saves a lot of time, it saves a lot of money as well.
Eric Obianozie and his friends launched Oya Now in 2017 to simply run errands for clients, pick and drop variety of items ordered through their platform.
We saw the lack of convenience and care that was taken by other logistics companies in this field. So we felt it was a gap we could cover, and then the lack of options when it comes to ordering things to your home. That's the convenience of having that. We saw, and we thought we could improve at least the betterment of the lives of Nigerians by doing that.
Oya Now has carved a niche for itself in the logistics market by partnering with pharmacies, supermarkets, makeup brands and restaurants, so customers can also order medicine, groceries, beauty products and food from its website or app. The startup also lists home cleaning and maintenance services on its platform, all available for order till 2 a.m., an option that didn't exist before now.
Basically, you place the order on the app. One of our customer care representatives, they confirm the order, they call to make sure that it's available. They get to the pickup point. They pick it up and they deliver it to the customer. It's been good so far. We're definitely going to make it better with the new marketing pushes we're about to lead forward from towards the end of the year now.
One thing you can't help but notice across their Lagos, Abuja and Kano offices is that Oya Now is a youth-centric brand run by a team of 100 young people, an unlikely scene in this part of the world. The founders themselves are below 30, and they are leading Africa's biggest economy into a future where commerce meets tech. Deji Badmus, CGTN, Abuja, Nigeria.
Tunisia is the latest country to formally embrace the 50 Million African Women Project, joining over 30 other nations across the African continent. The initiative aims to empower women entrepreneurs through a digital networking platform. CGTN's Adnan Shawashi explains.
This project is funded by the African Development Bank, AfDB, in partnership with the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA, the East African Community, EAC, and the Economic Community, of West African states.
This ambitious project aims to provide 50 million African women involved in commercial transactions with access to the necessary information across the African continent.
This online platform will facilitate the exchange of ideas among women entrepreneurs, share information and knowledge in African companies, in addition to access to financial services and market opportunities available in both urban and rural areas.
They will be able to access services such as mentorship. They will be able to access information on where they can find various support, for example, how to start a business or how to improve business, or where they can learn from one another on the challenges and how to address those challenges that may affect their businesses.
An electronic platform will be available online and on mobile devices in the form of an application. It will enable millions of African women to exercise, develop, and expand their activities within companies.
The purpose of the project is to empower women economically through provisioning of a networking platform that will allow them to access information on finance and non-financial services. These services ranges from access to markets, access to finance, access to skills and capacity building.
The new project will unite 50 million African women through an electronic platform. It will bring together experience, skills, and know-how in the field of business and create employment opportunities in Africa. Participants stressed the importance of cooperation between African women entrepreneurs, their economic empowerment, the recognition of their rights, and the fight against all forms of exclusion and violence against women, emphasizing the assistance needed to create projects by 2022. Adnan Sharishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Coffee producers in Uganda are hoping to invest more in processing the bean to tap into the growing international market. They say domestic consumption of the beverage is also increasing, with more cafes springing up. Over 100 coffee shops have opened up across the country in the last 2 years. CGTN's Hilary Ayesiga reports.
Sorting from the farm to cup, Joshua Kiesimire is ensuring the quality of the bean. He wants to satisfy the growing demand for the drink.
We have a growing population that seem to appreciate coffee even more. If we roasted our coffees, we could actually sell them locally here and allow the local Ugandans to also enjoy these premium coffees.
Using improved technology, he roasts the beans. The process takes about 30 minutes. On average, Joshua produces about 1,000 kilograms of premium Arabica coffee every week. He now plans to expand his business to tap into the growing demand for the beverage on the international market. But to tap into this market, standards must be maintained. And the quality controller here is happy with the taste and aroma.
It has a fruity taste and it has a good acidity. It has a little hint of chocolate and nuts in it. So I'm sure the consumers will enjoy this great cup of coffee.
Uganda's coffee industry is primarily export-driven. The country produces over 4 million bags, but only 6% of the population consumes the beverage, according to Uganda Coffee Development Authority. However, this is changing. The new ways of serving coffee are driving Ugandans towards the coffee culture, and processors like Joshua are expecting better returns. Hilary Ayesiga, CGTN, Kampala.
South African retailers have gone a step further in the fight against single-use plastics. Over the last few years, stores have reduced some of their plastic packaging. They've also introduced more eco-friendly or biodegradable shopping bags. They're now using standard labels to help consumers recycle and choose greener packaging. CGTN's Julie Shear reports.
Getting rid of single-use plastics is somewhat of a headache for South African consumers. Retailers will now have labels to simplify the task.
It makes it easy for the consumer because it doesn't matter which retailer and which products he's buying. He knows then where to look and what to look for, because plastics have a value and plastics have a very important energy that it retains, and we need to keep that in circulation. We need to recycle.
The new labels will also guide shoppers on recyclable items and those that aren't, helping them make informed choices.
Recycling is very important. It helps our world from dying, like maybe saving plants, animals. If we have the information, people will recycle more than what we are doing right now.
We recycle all the time. We find it very necessary to help the environment. And we just do it all the time. And it just helps to sort out the good from the bad.
Recycling rates have picked up to over 40%, but the take-up among households is still low.
If we can separate our wet waste or organic waste from the rest of the stuff, it will have so much more value. So that the next step, which is the wastepreneurs and all the waste pickers, have a cleaner product to collect.
The percentage of South African households that actively recycle remains low, but helping people understand how to discard packaging will hopefully change behaviours and stop the flow of plastics into nature. Julie Shara, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, we are going to a short break now. Lots more to come. Do stay with us, including Makeshift Trampoline Club in South Africa looks to produce Olympic gymnasts.
Join us in global business and see Africa through our eyes. The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
We begin in Alexandra, one of
I go to the gym almost every day, so I don't see these things. I don't see kids smoking, I don't see kids stealing. I see none of that. I'm protected, I feel protected.
Papama Khumalo is one of the regional champions, and her swan dives inspires many.
I love Alexandra Trampoline Club because it has been inspiring me for many years. I love trampoline.
To be a role model to these children, it's something I treasure. Because when I come, I know everyone's going to be like, oh, here's Papama, she's going to teach us this, going to teach us that.
Coach Hudson Khumalo started the club almost 20 years ago, and from this makeshift gym produced national champions.
We are surrounded by poverty, and we are also trying to get the kids together so that they are not scattered in the streets. This is a place to play and to do the sport as well.
Coach Hudson inspires me to do something more. Alexandra Trampoline Club inspires me, to be someone else like I wish to be. I think I'm good and I train hard and I believe in myself.
But even if the talent is here, it's hard to nurture and develop gymnasts further.
The challenges that the Alexandra Trampoline Club is facing mainly is funding, lack of attire, lack of transportation when you go to the competition, proper equipment. South Africa can produce high-level gymnasts that can qualify for the Olympics, but due to proper equipment, proper support structure, nutrition, all but talent, you've got raw talent everywhere, but without that proper funding, really, support from the government, support from the federation, you can't go far.
With no adequate facilities and against all odds, these kids reach for the sky and dream of a brighter future. Julie Shara, CGTN, Alexandra Township, South Africa.
Staying in South Africa, Soweto-born John Vusi Mfupi is a collage artist, and Mfupi's work celebrates youth and movement using recycled paper to make his impressive collages. CGTN's Yulissa Njamela shows us a few of his pieces.
We meet John Vusi Mfupi, whose work mostly reflects the life of ordinary lives of Sowetans. Soweto is his home. He uses recycled material to reflect that life. So Let's go see his work. Mfupi's work stands out from a distance with its bright colors. The interesting narratives of South African life, particularly that of the youth, are stuck in his work.
All in all, my work is all about showing my daily life experiences. I'm a Soweto boy. I capture the moment, everything that I come across. I don't struggle with subject matter because it's kind of like every day when I wake up, go to gym, pick up some images, grab them, then you collect them. Because sometimes you're using photograph, then I get to the studio, I develop them, but then change the subject there and there just to mix it.
His artwork is intricate and each piece time-consuming.
I love being an expressionist artist. Like I want to do a work. I don't want to compete with a photographer. Hence, at the end of the day, each and every piece can show that, well, it's a paper, but then it has those painterly effects, you know. Because what I'm doing, I get rid of the whole text. Yeah, then I just remain. Because what I need is just color. And it's kind of like pointillistic, you know, the Van Goghs used to love working with the, yeah.
In 2016, a collection of works saw Mfupi take his unique style in a new direction. He showcased a collection of sepia-like portraits, a groundbreaking series of artwork. The series was inspired by the burning of schools in Vuwani in the Limpopo province here in South Africa.
30 schools were burned down, and it touched me in a way whereby I needed to recycle, take those pieces, recycle them, and save the lives of those kids, you know. Yeah, me and kids, we are like this, you know, same WhatsApp group.
This artist enjoys sharing creative experiences and skills with the youth.
I work with more than 40 schools around Gauteng. Even when I went to Argentina, each and every country that I visit, I always want to share with kids, because to them, some of them, it's a miracle, you know.
John Vusi Mfupi has partaken in a number of international exhibitions. He currently has an exclusive deal with the Candice Berman Gallery to showcase and promote his work. Alexandra for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
All the sports news coming up for you after the break, including South Africa.